Hey folks, welcome to episode 6 of Nonpartisan Hacks, the podcast where we peel back the curtain on local government, one awkward meeting at a time. I'm Joel Grenz.
And I'm Sean Wood. We're two city councillors from Parksville, BC. But don't worry, this is not a Parksville podcast. We talk about local government, policy, and political life in a way that hopefully doesn't put you to sleep.
Oh, sorry. I just dozed off there for a second. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever thought, maybe I should run for office, or had someone tell them they should run, or maybe you just spend too much time yelling at the news. Either way, we're calling this episode So You're Thinking of Running for Local Government.
We'll talk about why people run, what the job's actually like, and what we wish we knew before we signed up. Spoiler alert, there are fewer parades and more late-night emails than you might think.
And we've got a quote take for you that you will not want to miss. It's one of those, did they really just say that moments? Followed by an actual on-the-record apology from a local councillor who, well, we'll get to that later. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Nonpartisan Hacks on your favorite podcatcher or go to nonpartisanhacks.com. And
a shout out to Shelly, who told us she's learning a lot from the show. Thanks, Shelly. We love hearing from listeners. She reached out on LinkedIn and she said, shout out to Sean Wood and Joel Grenz for their new podcast, Nonpartisan Hacks. I've learned so much about municipal government in just 4 of your first few episodes. Looking forward to hearing more. Give them a listen if you're interested in municipal government. Shelly, thank you so much for that. Honestly, it really meant the world to Joel and I. We're not doing the podcast for money. It actually costs us money, but compliments like that and asking people to check it out and that you learn from it, that means the world to us. Thanks so much, Shelly.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, hard to beat that comment, but I encourage people to try. we do love hearing that people are learning from this. And this podcast is actually about what we've learned from being in local government and running for local government. And that's why we want to talk about it some more if you're thinking of running for local government, because here in BC, we're a year from now, we're going to be kicking into high gear on elections for local government. And I know that in Alberta right now, they're about to go to the polls as well. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to apply to if you're thinking about running for local government and what we've learned from it. And so I guess maybe that's where a little bit of a disclaimer is that we're just speaking from our own experiences. We're not lawyers, campaign managers, ethics commissioners. This is not, we're not speaking on behalf of our council or anything like that. It's not legal. It's not financial advice. But what we do want to do is kind of give you our thoughts and our experience and what advice we have from having been doing this now for, I guess, 3 years.
Yeah, I was thinking, Joel, as you were speaking there, that maybe we want to give our listeners a little bit of background that we both have a little bit more experience than just the 3 years as councillors. So I really had no idea about politics until I ended up being a federal candidate for the federal Green Party in 2019. I ran against the guy who won, which is Gord Johns, our MP. And so I learned a lot with 9 all-candidates meetings in person in 2019, pre-COVID, standing room only. I didn't have very many answers at the beginning of those 9, but at the end of them, I was kind of getting the hang of it. And I don't recommend running for federal politics as your first.
Yeah, I was going to say, you went straight to the big leagues there.
It was refined by fire, and then I ended up running for local council. But Joel, I'm going to pass it over to you because I know you have a lot of experience as well.
Well, so the first time I didn't meet you, the first time I saw you was in a packed room at an all candidates meeting. I went to watch as a member of the public, and the room was standing room only. It was probably like 500 people and probably at least that. In any case, that was definitely trial by fire, going straight to the big leagues in federal politics. I generally would not recommend that. And maybe that's our first recommendation is that local government is a really great place to get started. But we do have a bit of a framework here. So let's maybe start with kind of why do people run? So in this will tie into what you're kind of pitching for me to introduce. There was my background politically and why I ran. So I had volunteered on campaigns, starting with a federal campaign in 2008. I just kind of called up the local candidate running and said, hey, I'd love to volunteer. And that's how I got involved. And before that, I had not been involved in political anything other than just watching it and paying attention and being interested in it. And that really opened up a whole world of like a whole network of people that were interested in politics, interested in government, and was a great way to get sort of introduced to that whole environment. And because so many of the people that are involved in federal are also involved in provincial and local government, so it's a great way to get to know people. And I would definitely recommend volunteering on a campaign of some kind, provincial, federal, local, leadership, whatever. That is a great way to get to know who the players are, which is going to be pretty critical if you ever plan on running yourself. And it's also a great way to learn about how things work.
Yeah, and we have a few notes here. Why do people run? And one thing before we get into those is I wanted to mention, Joel, because it kind of triggered something that some people run for kind of their own gain, or they have their own pet issue that they want to push that's more related to their own kind of their own needs or their own agenda, and it's not really community related or province related or country related. And I've seen that not work very well because that's not the role. And so some people have kind of a very personal thing that's just personal for them, not necessarily the environment or something that's for the greater good. And that is not a great reason to run. But we have a few listed here.
Keep your pet at home.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your pet at home,
Sure.
your pet issue at home, because I think if you do come in, like run because you're interested in bringing forward your pet issue, you're going to probably quickly find out that you cannot necessarily bring that pet issue across just you, especially at the local government, but really at any level, unless you're writing the policy platform of a provincial party or federal party with your pet issue, going to have a real hard time getting that across the line unless you are the premier or prime minister, I guess. So just keep that in context of what you're there to do. I guess like the why people run piece. So pet issue, let's cross that one off the list. What's a reason to run other than a pet issue?
Yeah, we have passion for a cause versus frustration with the system, encouragement from friends and community, if not me, who kind of feeling, and ego trips. There are some people who are kind of like, because I'm the best and I can do better. Of course, you want to have confidence, but I always like to say that confidence and ego are two very different things. Ego is me thinking about myself, and confidence is kind of not being scared to chat with people and having an open mind, and also knowing that I'm not always right. I'm often wrong. And so I'm open to learning what other people think.
Yeah, being okay with that. That's good confidence. That's not ego.
Yep.
And I think a common thing we see all the time is people have this idea that if they've run a business, then they can run government. And unfortunately, government and business, fortunately or unfortunately, they're not the same kind of entity at all. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to probably be somewhat frustrated with how government works, mm-hmm. and you're not going to be able to make government operate like an entrepreneurial business. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is make the analogy that running for government, if you have background, and this is where one of my tips for sure, is that I would recommend getting involved in a local nonprofit or board, because I think the best way to train yourself to be in local government is to sit on some other kind of board. Why? Well, first of all, the role of the board is to oversee the organization. It's not running the organization. It's overseeing the direction of the organization. It's looking at the budget. It's looking at the vision and the direction of the organization. But it's actually the organization's staff that actually runs the day-to-day operations. And the same with local government. We're not, as councillors, we're not down there making decisions about, when the road should be swept or that kind of stuff. That's operational. What we are doing is overseeing the general direction of the organization, making sure that funds are allocated and that conform with the general direction that we see for the community. And a board is very similar. And the other piece about that is boards generally operate, especially like more sophisticated or like more professional boards, generally operate using Robert's rules. And Robert's rules are a great way to run a meeting, and that's what we use at the council table is we use Robert's Rules of Order. And so you get practice doing Robert's Rules of Order in a board that uses that approach to running a meeting. And I would definitely recommend, reading that book, watching videos about Robert's Rules, And I don't know if you can think of any examples where someone has Robert's Rules-ified us in the council. Sean, I don't know if it comes to mind, but you do get those people who really know Robert's Rules, and then they can kind of pull something out of the bag of tricks in the Robert's Rules in order to kind of change the direction of the meeting.
Yeah, and some people who are kind of Robert's Rules ninjas is what I like to call them. They know the technical ways that a meeting can be kind of manipulated, but I don't think that's as strong as a stance as knowing how each person around the table views a certain topic, and you get to know that person, you chat with them about a certain topic, and then I want to have a pretty good idea of how Joel Grenz looks at something, or Councillor Beale, or Councillor Fraz. And by doing that, I can try to see a topic through their lenses. And then when I chat with them, I kind of have an idea of how they are going to start to talk about a subject. And if I want to win the vote, I want to position how I'd like to see or how I feel about something and chat with them. And that's a much better way to see the vote go in a way that you think is the best way for the city or the regional district, than try to force someone in by using Robert's Rules. That doesn't leave that councillor or that regional director, it doesn't leave a good feeling with them. It feels like they've been manipulated instead of just chatting with them and trying to see things through their eyes. So I'm not a big fan of using the rules to kind of manipulate the meeting. I would much rather see people with an open mind and have conversations with individuals. And so you kind of see how their perspective as well. And maybe I end up changing my view because they have information that I don't have.
Okay, so you're suggesting don't read Robert's Rules. Instead, read how to win friends and influence people.
Well, that's a good one too. But I mean, you do want to know how to run a meeting. Both you and I have chaired meetings as well, and so there's definitely something to be said for watching lots of meetings on YouTube, other councils, other regional districts, which you and I both do quite a bit. And that really helps to see some of those kind of tricks that do come in on occasion.
Yeah, so maybe that's our next tip is to watch other council meetings, regional district meetings, not just your own, like in your own community. I would definitely encourage people to watch meetings from different areas because they all are a little bit different in how they handle procedure and how the conversations tend to go, how the meetings are chaired. You definitely learn a lot from just kind of immersing yourself in any topic that you want to get to know. But if you're looking to run for council, watch council meetings.
Yeah, and respectful conversation, of course. Joel and I both are pretty big fans of just having a respectful conversation. You can find council meetings that are less than respectful, and you can see how they go. It's going to be a really hard term if that kind of disrespect continues from one or multiple people, and both of us really strive just to keep things respectful and civil, even if we disagree on issues.
Yeah, for sure. Let's now chat a little bit about kind of what will it be like? What are the expectations people have around what they can accomplish running for government, local government? What do you think, your level of influence, power, ability to change is? I think people often go into local government with this idea that they're going to be able to, overthrow the system or change the system or revolutionize something. Sean, have you overthrown the system yet?
No, I haven't overthrown the system. That's not my goal. I don't think it's your goal either. Things are the way they are for a reason, and since none of us are omniscient, we don't know all of those reasons. And so when you are on council, you start to dig into a certain issue and you find out why things are a certain way they are. That doesn't mean we can't bring changes, but there are reasons why things are kind of running the way they are. And when you go to adjust those, you got to make sure that you take into account what the risks are of those changes and what impacts they might have on things.
Yeah, one thing that I've always tried to have in my mind when making kind of decisions that result in some kind of change in the community or bringing something new forward is the risk of what if what you bring forward actually makes things worse unintentionally, unintentionally, because sometimes things are the way they are because it's the less bad option. And so a lot of my initial counsel, and I'm still there for sure, is trying to understand and play a bit of, I keep saying that I'm in a Hardy Boys book. For anyone who's read Hardy Boys, I read it to my kids when they were young. My dad read it to me when I was young. And so Hardy Boys is kind of a thing for me. But I'm playing like the mystery of the missing whatever in the topic for council is, and just trying to really understand why things got to where they are now. One of the things that happens a lot is that you get some kind of process that was put, into motion, and new council comes in. There's not a sort of clear baton handing over with continuity, so you don't really necessarily know why decisions were made the way they were before. And so you have to, I think, be really humble and be, okay, the previous people probably weren't total idiots. They probably did things for a reason. What are those reasons? How can I understand what that is before I take that to the next level? And hopefully I'm building on moving in the right direction on whatever that issue is, as opposed to undermining maybe some work that was done in the past, just because I'm not aware of why things were put in place the way they were.
Yeah, and one of our points here, Joel, is reality check. It's often slower, messier, and less glamorous than it looks. And I think you're speaking to kind of the slower part where you kind of do a little bit of background information, digging and figuring out why things are the way they are. Less glamorous for sure. You're dealing with a lot of emails, kind of the complaints department often on things. Slower, messier and slower is kind of government in general, and we wish that it wasn't slower and messier, but that's just how it is. You have a lot of opinions, you have staff, you have organization, big organization, and that's just the way it is, even though we'd like things to go faster and better all the time.
Well, and all of this is so complex that trying to wade through the complexity is a huge challenge. You look at, ask anyone, like all the way up to the premier. I'm listening to interviews with Premier Eby this week talking about long-term care homes, and how do you understand all the complexity involved? Like, we have a long-term care home coming to our region, and just hopefully. That one is, hopefully just that one is, to get that happening is super complex, let alone across the entire province. So just have to recognize that everything is very complex. So how do you wade through the complexity? Sean, how do you wade through the complexity?
It's very difficult. It takes learning. David Eby, our premier, is a smart guy, but he learned this week ferry subsidies. The feds subsidize ferries out east because they're interprovincial, so they get a lot more subsidies than we do out here. And so, the premier is seeing those numbers now, and he's not happy with those numbers. And I think he has a good case for us to have more subsidies than we do. And he's dealing with his own budget, and he'd like things to be more fair. But he's learning on the job as well, just like we are.
Yeah, and that's where I think the trait of being a curious person, someone who always wants to learn more. Earlier one of the things was about ego. Well, the flip side of that too is being curious, being open to learning new things all the time, always be learning. One of the things that I pitched as part of my candidacy that I feel is an asset that I bring to the table is that through my day job, my work, I've been able to work with a lot of different kinds of organizations and companies, businesses, nonprofits, government entities in my business. And that has exposed me to a lot of different perspectives, which I think is very helpful, because when you're at local government, there are so many different things that you kind of need to know something about. You don't need to be an expert in everything. You don't need to be, I think it's like if you're a generalist, kind of like a jack of all trades type person, you're in a good position in local government, because it means that you have a bit of an understanding of all the different things. It's the actual engineers that are going to come to your, maybe as a delegation or bring reports. They are definitely deep experts on a specific subject or topic. And you don't need to be that, but if you have a bit of an understanding of engineering and a bit of understanding of how nonprofit works, or a bit of understanding of how business runs their books or finances, like that is going to be super helpful and important, because you are going to be getting at that kind of skim surface level on a whole bunch of different topics at the council table and in your day-to-day council activities. So I definitely recommend kind of just getting familiar with lots of different stuff. Be curious, be open to new things, try to learn a little bit about a lot of stuff.
And in a lot of the delegations that we are presented with, it might sound boring at first, because people are like, what do I need to know about variances? Why is someone coming for a variance on a setback for a property? Well, A lot of what we do at the council table, if you're thinking of running for local government, is land use and variances on things, fence height or setbacks or building height. Kind of boring. We're not talking about saving the world. We're not talking about not cutting down any trees. We're not talking about fossil fuels. We're kind of talking about, how close the building can be to the property line. Sounds boring, but it does impact the neighbors around it. And so that's a lot of the stuff that kind of the meat and potatoes that we deal with at City Council.
Yeah, your whole campaign speech for your candidacy. I will be this way about variances. I will allow setbacks of 3 meters.
I will not grant any variances.
All right, so what does it actually take then? What's the time commitment, emotional stamina required? Like, what do you have to say about that, Sean, in terms of having done this for now 3 years? What does it involve in your commitment?
Yeah, like anything in life, you kind of get out of it what you put into it. I try to make time for people for coffees, especially if I get an email from someone and they're very ticked off about a certain issue. Email has its pluses and minuses, but I will often just say, hey, can we go out for a coffee? And people really appreciate that personal touch. And I know you do this as well, Joel, where you make time for someone and they feel like they've been listened to because they have, and then we try to run with their concern, and we dig into it a little bit and get back to them, and they really appreciate that. But that all takes time. It's easy to not make any time for it, and I think you probably get out of the job what you put into it. If you don't put much into it, if you don't make time for people, maybe you don't like the job and it's not doing much for you. I like putting time in. I feel like that's the job I signed up for. That's what I was elected to do, and I try to make time for people, and I know you do as well, Joel.
Yeah, for sure, and it is the kind of job at the local small. I guess we're a smaller community. We're not like a big city here, so. I imagine the time commitment is even more so when you have more people knocking on your door. But here in Parksville, it's more of a part-time thing, but you can make it into a full-time. You can make it into kind of whatever. You set your own hours. You're not punching a time clock. So it's also important to kind of recognize what your limits are and how much you're able to put into it to maintain your own sanity, your own stamina, right?
Work-life balance.
Yeah, work-life,
family, friends.
Because it's 4 years now. It used to be 3. It's 4 years now in BC, and so it's more of a marathon now to be on council. And there's a lot of stuff coming at you for sure, and so you want to make sure you balance that and kind of set some boundaries for yourself. And but what it does, here are some of the things that come at you. Obviously, like in Parksville, we have meetings twice a month, the actual council meeting, and then there's additional meetings or like committee of the whole type meetings that will come up during the time when we're working on the financial plan. There are more meetings around that, and then you've got lots of public events. There's never a shortage of events to attend. We both try to attend as many as we can because it's important to be, you have a role in the community as kind of a representative when you're on council, and that people want to see you out there supporting the local activities and events as kind of the face of the city, face of the community on council. And also it's very helpful to be immersed in what's going on, because then you are now doing even better job of understanding what's going on in your community. And can represent that better at the table.
Definitely thick skin required. If you take everything personally, you're gonna feel pretty burnt out pretty fast, especially if you can't get traction on things to fix an issue quickly. And so it doesn't mean you care. If you have a thick skin, it doesn't mean you don't care. It actually means you care if you can kind of separate your personal feelings a little bit, because you're going to be more effective if you can separate yourself a little bit. When I was on the volunteer fire department here, I had a family member. He's like, "Oh, how do you go to car accidents? I don't know how you do it. I would blah blah blah." He found it hard to see himself being able to deal with that. I'm like, well, you kind of have to separate yourself a little bit, because you're going to be more effective on the scene. If you can kind of deal with what's in front of you, you'll be a better help to the person who needs help. And so that's kind of the situation with council. If you're really personally attached to everything, you're going to have a really hard time. You're going to get burned out pretty quick. So you just try to be as business-like as possible, and you're going to be more effective like that, I've found.
Well, yeah, and recognizing too that newsflash, people that get involved in politics tend to have a bit of an ego, and so you're going to be at a table with other people who also have strong opinions, strong belief, strong sense of their personal capabilities or their ideas, and so being aware of that, so you don't have the clashing of egos, and having a thick skin, even not around the community for sure. You're going to be dealing with Facebook groups and comments and emails that aren't always the politest. But also at the council table, where I would hope people would be a bit more respectful, but that doesn't always happen. And because end of the day, there are egos and emotions involved. And so just, you have to be aware of that and kind of take a deep breath once in a while.
Right on. So I think we did quite a bit of that item. Moving on to what's the process to run, Joel? There's some technical stuff here: nomination papers, eligibility requirements, fundraising or not, signage, campaign teams, how long do you have to campaign, key deadlines, rules around financial disclosure, signage, etc.
Yeah, I'd say the quick hack on that is to go to City Hall if you're thinking of running and sit down with the returning officer who's running that election, and they will give you kind of the rundown of all the technical nitty-gritty of actually running. And you can do this, I'd say a few months before the actual election. If you're in a community that has parties, you're going to have to go through that process, which is a separate thing. And I don't have much to provide on that, at least from the Parksville perspective, because we don't have parties here. But if you do live in a bigger community where there are parties, that's where my earlier suggestion of getting involved in volunteering is going to be key, because you'll have those relationships already from having volunteered on campaigns. And when the time comes where you want to run, you'll already have those relationships and be able to do the party thing. But on the aspects around nomination papers, all that sort of stuff, definitely talk to the returning officer in the community, who will give you all the nuts and bolts of that. And
local elections are run by Elections BC here in BC. And so they have fantastic staff as well. If you call Elections BC, they are really great at getting back to you with any of your questions on finances or signage or blah, 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 blah. They've been really great for me in the past. And just try to get very clear on the rules, especially around money. Because we've seen, I think just recently, the report came out from the election we ran in, where some people got penalized because they didn't handle donations according to the book, and that could be not a good thing. Yeah, so run any questions by City Hall, the returning officer, or Elections BC for all the technical stuff. Yeah, okay, so now I think that's enough on that topic. People can figure that stuff out. But you do need to think about whether you actually want to run, gut check. How do you make the decision to actually pull the trigger and run for public office? Yeah, do you have the time for this? Are you prepared for public scrutiny? Are you willing to learn on the fly? How will this impact your family, job, personal life? Again, it kind of pivots back for me to how much do you want to put into the job? Joel, you and I have pretty flexible day jobs and family lives, where we knew going into it that we would probably want to do a good job as councillors, and so we spend quite a bit of time trying to give the voters and the public in the city of Parksville as much of our time and effort as we can, and provide good value, which we do. But it does take time and effort. Obviously, you have to care, and it's often about other people's issues and other people's topics, and not your own. Yeah, it's public servant. You're serving in this role. And so it's not like if you want to pump up on your ego and that kind of thing, that's not the main reason to say yes to this. Just because you've got people telling you, oh, you should run for government, you should do that. That's going to happen. Like, people are going to give those suggestions to run for office, and maybe not knowing what they're setting you up for. So just go into it with a full, clear idea of what it is, and definitely talk to your family about it, because there are family implications for your partner or your kids, or people in your life that are going to be involved, whether they like it or not. Yeah, I mean, if you want to go into something for popularity, I would recommend starting an ultra popular podcast. we've seen a lot more traction on that side of things than we have being councillors.
There you go. I mean, the nonpartisan hacks, like and subscribe, right? Is that what they say?
Tips from the trenches, Joel. Best, worst advice we got before running, what we wish we knew beforehand, the value of mentors, networks, and asking for help.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the mentor one there. And through my volunteer work on campaigns, and then eventually also did some paid work, I was able to learn from some really great mentors who had been involved in elections a lot, had been involved in government a lot, and that really helped me become who I am just as a person, but also politically. So find good mentors. And I think there are people who have been around this for a long time and they really get excited about government and elections and politics and have volunteered on lots of campaigns. Those are a great resource, and people will want to help you if you're thinking of running, who are involved in that. And so seek out those mentors and build those relationships, and that takes time and it's worth the investment.
If you want to get anything done, especially in government, build those relationships with people, even if they're in a party, provincial, federal, and they're in a party that you don't vote for. Maybe you don't even like that party. There are caring people who run for these parties. Build relationships with them, and you'll be able to get more done than if you are partisan and don't want to speak to someone because they are part of a party. That is not how to get things done. That's a good way to protest. It is not a good way to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. And another tip I'll give is tip from the trenches. Be good at reading. That's maybe something that's not talked about enough, but there is so much reading to be in local government. An agenda can be hundreds of pages, and you may get it a few days before the actual meeting. And if you're not good at quickly identifying what is critical in that agenda that you really should dig into, I try to go beyond just the reading if I can, and if there's something, drive down to where the proposed development is, try to get some background reading done if it's an issue that's not necessarily on the agenda. So that's even more reading. That's even more background. So if you probably want to be pretty good at reading and quickly identifying and synthesizing information.
Joel, your day at the regional district last Tuesday, how many pages of agendas were there, both closed and open, that were given to you how many days before the meeting?
Well, thank you for that segue, Sean, because I did fill in for Sean when he was in Ontario last week or whenever that was, and he was doing the podcast from Ontario. And so I filled in the regional district. The agenda was not even really final until like the Friday before, like 3 days before. 4 days. Yeah, and they kept actually adding more items to the agenda, and the total page count, because there were multiple meetings on that day, I think it was like something like 2,000 pages.
That's what I was going to guess.
So 2,000. a lot of reading, and clearly I can't even read all of that, and so you have to really figure out how to get the key information that you need to make a good vote. And that is something that I don't know if I never did a speed reading course or anything like that. I know those are out there, but you do need to be pretty literate for this role to be effective. And I don't even know like good ways even around that. If you aren't very good at reading, that's something to really, I guess, practice. Just read.
Alternatives to running, Joel Grenz: join advisory committees, volunteer for boards, commissions, or campaigns, attend meetings, get involved in local groups.
So if you're thinking maybe I don't want to do this now that I've listened to Sean and Joel tell me about what's involved in local government, we're not. This episode is So You Think You Want to Run. We called it that for a reason. We're not trying to scare you off of running, but we do want to make sure people have a realistic understanding of what's involved. And absolutely, even if you're thinking of running, or if you're thinking of running and not going to do it this time and do it next time, do the work in advance or get involved anyway, right? Like, join, if there are advisory committees in your community, join those, sign up for those. I already mentioned, join a board, join a commission, get involved in local campaigns, attend the meetings, even if you don't think you'll run this time. Go to the odd meeting of council, get a feel for what that looks like. Imagine yourself sitting there at the council table. Am I able to do that? I would definitely recommend people get involved in that and help out people that are in that position. See what you can do to help them, because that will, even if you're not ever going to run, it is just the right thing to do for your community. Everyone will be better off if folks get involved and with the right attitude.
Yeah, I went to 6 months of meetings before I ran for council, and that really helped. I think I already mentioned this in one of the debates a few years ago, but I had been to so many meetings that I wanted to put my hand up and vote in some of the meetings, because I knew where I would vote and I'm in the gallery. Of course, we don't encourage voting in the gallery because it doesn't really count anyways.
All right. Well, I think that's our quick run through of what it looks like to run for government. So, but if you're thinking of running, have already ran and maybe won or lost, we'd love to hear your story. Just drop us a line at nonpartisanhacks.com. We've got a form on that page where you can submit your thoughts, ideas, your stories. We'd love to hear it. Maybe we'll read it on the whatever this is. Find us on social media. We'd love to hear what you've got to say. We all learn from each other, so love to hear that.
Joel, what do we have for a quote take this week?
Okay, well, I guess the final call to action on that is if you've got a friend who's thinking of running, I'm going to cue up our quote take sound here. If you've got a friend who is thinking of running, send them this episode too, because maybe we've got some tips that are worth listening to.
I'm sure we didn't cover everything, so if you do have some other questions, just like Joel said, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help as much as we can on whatever you're thinking about.
And I quote.
Quote take.
All right. So our quote take this week is from a meeting at a council table. Do you want to tee this up a little bit, or should we just fire it off?
Oh, sure. I mean, you might have been following a little bit of what's going on in the city of Nanaimo. They have kind of a hub of social supports in one part of downtown, and there have been delegation after delegation, presentation after presentation of the issues that are surrounding some of these social supports, and it has caused a lot of frustration for City Council in Nanaimo, as well as community members and businesses. And here we have Paul Manley, and I'll let Paul take it away.
Yeah, councillor in the city of Nanaimo.
I just wanted to apologize to MLA Malcolmson, Minister Malcolmson, for what I said at the last council meeting about packing people up into buses to send them to her home on Gabriola. I would not want to disrupt the home life of any elected official or the bucolic lifestyle of her neighbors, but I was frustrated, feeling frustrated and hearing the frustration of constituents in Nanaimo here that we hear from over and over and over again, and what I said was irresponsible, and I'd just like to apologize for that. Thank you.
I knew what bucolic meant, Joel, and just for the people who obviously aren't as smart as me, I looked it up, and it says relating to the pleasant aspects of countryside and country life. And I want to start, before we get into this, Joel, by saying that I've met Sheila Malcolmson, and Paul Manley's a friend of mine. We are not here to embarrass anyone. They're both good, caring people who are in tough parts, on a tough issue for both orders of government, municipal and provincial.
And that's really what we want to talk about, is the word bucolic.
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. That's why we have this quote take. Yeah, that is definitely a tricky issue. And I think maybe the first thing to say about this in the context of today's episode is that you're going to make mistakes if you're on council. Nobody's perfect. We're all human. The key thing, though, here is what this councillor Manley, Paul, did is he apologized when he made a mistake. And I think especially when emotions run high, because the context on this quote is that in the previous meeting, the council had received several delegations from people in the community who were very frustrated with an overdose prevention site in their neighborhood and all of the things they had to deal with around that. And so that frustration really, really clearly got to the council, and they really felt that frustration, and that's why Paul would have said what he did. And we're all trying to navigate a really challenging issue around how to deal with the like homelessness, mental health, addiction issues. And in this case, maybe Paul, and clearly he apologized for it, went a little bit too far in his comments on that.
Yeah, and I haven't spoken to MLA Malcolmson about it, but I'm sure she would like the situation to be better for community members and businesses as well. This is not an easy issue. And so I think Paul was expressing frustration, which, probably mayor and council, we could hear their frustration just kind of vented in different ways. And a lot of props to Paul for apologizing, because that takes a lot of courage as well to kind of backtrack on things. And this is, local government taking a lot of the brunt of a provincial issue. I think that's a pretty fair way to put it. And so, I'm sure Paul would position things a little bit differently now, but so province, this is largely a provincial jurisdiction that local governments are seeing a lot of fallout for, and we are on the front lines, and we have meetings every 2 weeks, and people can sign up to be a delegation, and we are face to face with the people who are experiencing, thinking of selling their home or thinking of closing their business, and we just want the province to understand that this is the fallout from social supports that should be more successful than they are being at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the key thing for me on council, whatever comes before us, if someone's coming with a proposal, I do have the general mindset is if someone's coming to us wanting to do something in our community, whether it's a government entity that like provincial government wanting to put in some kind of social support facility, or whether it's someone who wants to do something with their home, I do want to take the approach of how do we get to yes on that? Someone is coming forward with that. But getting to yes means creating the conditions in the community that will allow that to be successful. And when we've got something like something that can be very tricky, like overdose prevention site, addiction treatment center, which did come to Parksville, was a proposal around an addiction treatment center. We have to, as councillors, take the perspective of the community, empathize with the folks that would be living around there, and work with the proponent, the person who's bringing this forward, to smooth out what potential hiccups there could be, so that whatever it is can be successful. I don't care if it's a bowling alley or an overdose prevention site. There are potential impacts on the community of having whatever it is, and so how do we make sure that those impacts are mostly positive and not negative?
Yeah, everyone wants the projects to be successful. The council wants the project to be successful, the mayor, the province. We want a brewery to be successful. We want a pub to be successful. We want a cannabis store to be successful. There's rules around things to lessen the negative impacts around the community so that other businesses can continue doing what they're doing.
Because we want them to be successful.
We want them to be successful. We want neighborhoods to continue to enjoy the peace that, that they when they purchase their home or they're renting their apartment, they want things to remain as peaceful as possible as well. At the same time, we know that there are people who need drastic supports for the place they are in their lives. And so this is the balance. And what we see with this quote from Councillor Manley, from my friend Paul, is the frustration that local government has with what is largely a provincial issue.
Yeah, and I think further to, again, our context of the topic today is Paul Manley he's a very experienced politician. He was an MP. He's run multiple times at different levels of government. And so you can see that, we're all human here. We're all really feel what our constituents feel, and we're part of the role is to be the conduit of those feelings. But obviously in that case, he apologized for it because it wasn't, maybe done in the way that he would have done if he were to do it again. But it does speak to that our job is to be the conduit of the community to the proponent, to provincial government, to federal government, because end of the day, at local government level, we are closest to the constituents because we're dealing with a much smaller geography. We have the regular meetings. We're much more accessible. And so that is something to recognize if you're looking to run for local government, is that you want to be that voice for your local community and keep it respectful and keep it productive. And end of the day, how do we make the community better?
We are the front lines of government, and if you're thinking of running, keep that in mind. All the best to the provincial government. They have a pretty large deficit, and we're probably going to see numbers coming out that means that deficit is even larger. And that means that borrowing money for the province will get more expensive. The best thing the province can do is bring revenue in with the plethora of financial tools that they have available so that they can deliver the services that everyone depends on them delivering.
All right. Yeah, so hey, I think that's a good place to leave it off today. So that's a wrap on episode 6 of Nonpartisan Hacks. Whether you're thinking of putting your name forward or just want to understand what goes into those nameplates on the council table.
Shelley, thanks so much again for that compliment on LinkedIn. Really appreciate it. All the best, everyone. Write in if you have any questions for running. Thanks.
Subscribe if you're not already. We're on the various platforms, so subscribe. If you feel like this is helpful for you to understand local government, please get the word out. And until next time, take care of yourself and your community.
Ciao for now.